All right. Well, it's a little bit, after lunch, and people maybe get a little bit sleepy here. And I was definitely the one yesterday, because time jet lag a little bit. But one thing I can promise you that I'll try to give you something different you haven't seen before, probably. And also trying to work on this presentation throughout the last couple of nights, because hearing what you guys are talking about, and for the purpose of this conversation, and by the way, the title has been changed, is that, rather than just focus on one story, what I'm trying to do here is it's an example of different things, and hopefully we can stimulate some discussions. There's no particular message I'm trying to deliver, but it's in the sense is that how can we work together, taking advantage of some of the new things. All right, so we will begin with a diagram that Sandy and I worked on since, I don't know, a decade ago. That when we started, collaboration about this. This is basically a project that we worked together called the MIDAS project. Is modeling invasion dynamics across scales. And the idea is that trying to do this in a more systematic way of thinking about the invader, the recipient system, the drivers in the spatial and temporal component. So, and since then we have worked on quite a few things, and oh, this is backward. Okay, this way. And we were lucky enough to able to get a bunch of data and work on a few things. And so the first one is that we have mapped the national distribution of invasive plants across the U.S. Right. So this is the first publication ever in the sense of give you a big picture about what is the invasion. But the limitation of this, since the publication of this paper, which is, in the, I think this came out 2017 or so, is that we never had a second update about this, because invasive just not sitting there. They're going to continue to grow, right? And so what's the status now? We have no idea. Okay. And we also have done not only the invasive plants, but do the invasive insects. And this is a project that Sandy started. I always call his pretty picture a map paper in 2013. And since then, we have taken it to the next level, which is now we make it an online database that's called, well, it still carries the same name called AFPE, but it's well, we hope to make it more dynamic. We are currently updating this every 6 months or so, and we have more resources that come in. So this will be directly connected to the Forest Service report system. So at least every year, we'll have new data for this invasive insects dynamic. So you can download data and stuff over there through the AFPE data site. But what we have done with this data, and I'm going to introduce two terms here. Maybe you guys have been using this all along, but I want to describe this about two terms. One is I call it the strategic understanding. And the second term, which we'll discuss a little bit later, I call it the tactical level of actions. Strategic level thing is that you're thinking about, I have a big picture about things like national distribution, so I have maybe policies about quarantine or understanding the dynamics and biotic resistance like Eki was talking about earlier, so we'll have more natives. What would we, have the ability to do stuff, or in terms of impact and so on. So I'm going to quickly run through a few of those that my team and with collaborator we're able to do. The first one I want to highlight is that, well, invasives are bad. I mean, I'm talking, preaching to the choir over here, right? But in general, invasive insects, at least in the US, is causing about over 5 teragrams of carbon losses every year. And that's equivalent to 2.5 million cars on the street. Okay? But compared to the overall biomass that we have here, which is the green circle that you on the screen, it's very tiny dot, even not a 1,000th of a percent of the total biomass. But on the other hand, I mean, it's a huge number. And the potential number of hosts that are available there that could be damaged is about half of them are under threat. So if there's an outbreak, more like Thomas was saying a little bit earlier about there's more outbreaks of insects, there might be way more of these potential impacts. All right, so we're also trying to gain some understanding. I'm only giving one example over here about where all this stuff are coming from, right? You look at these 80 plus damaging invasive insects that they are kind of having some interesting patterns, right? All this like species originated from Asia, they can be introduced and established both East Coast and West Coast. Species originated from Australia, most likely they only establish and survive in the West Coast. Europe, mainly in the New England area, and so on and so forth. So there are patterns. And we have done the same thing with invasive plants, which is not on the slide, is that through the herbarium data, we know they are introduced mainly in the Northeast and spreaded by the transportation corridors. So this is nothing really surprising, and Eki already covered that slide, so I'm going to skip this for a sec. But it's in a sense is that the system in a way help you to understand what you have, but it's more nuanced than that, right? You look at this figure over here, there's a lot of information over here, but what key message I want to deliver is that biotic resistance happen, but only at a certain scale. If you look at the large scale, because now biodiversity is when you're changing the scale, biodiversity, the meaning of biodiversity changes, right? At a plot level, biodiversity means niche availability. When you're looking at county or regional scale, biodiversity no longer means that, means species pool, right? And so the same term is totally different meanings, and that would result in the different understandings. So in this kind of situation where you're seeing at certain scales, they have biotic resistance, but it happens at particular locations and at different scale again. Or if you look at the slice this in a different way, is that forest, and we will talk about a lot of pine and other forests. Well, if you slice them in a different lens, talk about fungi. We talked about fungi this morning. Actinomycorrhizal associated forests, which most often are the deciduous, right? And then the ECM, which is ectomycorrhizal, which is mainly associated with the pine and coniferous forest. Guess what? These forests might have a total different way of impacting the overall distribution and abundance of invasive species. And again, there's a lot of detail here, but I want to quickly point out is that when you are ECM dominant in general, you have lower invasion. When you have AM dominance, you have more of these invasions that are happening, right? Because it's much faster of nutrient cycling and so on and so forth that is happening. And we also look at things like how the traits of the invaders could impact the overall, all the many non-native species being introduced in the region. In this graph is showing us that all the plants that are being introduced in the, well, not all, the woody plants that are introduced In the U.S., you know, some are invasive, some are non-invasive. But you look at the sort of, if you use your eyes trying to fix on a line over here, the line below this sort of 45, negative 45-degree angle, you know, these are the species are often more invasive than others. What are the traits associated? So far we found two, right? One is that they have, you know, abiotic, asexual reproduction. And second is they have, if they have seeds, they have smaller seeds that allow them to distribute that is much faster. And relate to this, like there are a few of these species, if you really look into this, they actually are defined as invasives, like as in New Zealand. This is just, in a sense, this is because it's one of the USDA definition becomes who's your senator, who is stronger that can, you know, declare a species that is invasive or not. Anyway, so I want to move into the next sort of really a discussion here is the tactical level of thinking here. You look at this famous EAB in North America, emerald ash borer, and this is a paper that Sandy and I co-advised a student, a postdoc that Sam Warder worked on, is that if you think about this, this is in a species of very early detection that happened in Detroit area, and there was a pretty decent effort that went in. But have we been able to stop this species of the spread? Well, not really. It killed nearly all the ash trees by now for most of the region, right? Or here's another example. This is a lanternfly that initially discovered in the state of Pennsylvania, and this is a little bit old. This is a paper that published by I think a few years back that it's continued spread. So what are the challenges? Why? Like it seems like we can work on lots of interesting papers, but there is, in my view, there is some disconnections here that between all the great work that we do versus to the applied side. And there are many things to blame and many reasons to gaps are existing. But one of the things that I have been thinking I should be working on is that can we do some better job of our landscape level of detection and mapping? So whether it's been a early establishment of a population that would get eradicated, or we have a better coordination along the landscape. And so here's in a picture. This picture does not turn out well. You know where this picture is taken? A quiz. All right, so Mike got the prize here. This is a picture that is just outside of this university by the valley, what we call that, by the creek, right? And I will show you. You guess how many invasive species are here in this particular picture? So there are 4 species that I can see in this, right? You have the garlic mustard that is in the front, and then you have robinia is here, and over here you have tree of heaven is over there, and in the background is the English ivy, right? I just randomly took a picture, and I was like, oh, this is a garlic mustard. Then I look closer, there are way more species out there. Now, the point of using this picture is that if I don't know whether garlic mustard distribution here is wide distributed or not, but if this is the first population, say, in this region, if you have better effort of identifying them, of mapping them, then you can have better management to even prevent them from the further spread. Maybe it's too academic a way of thinking about this. Maybe it's way beyond the control, right? But my thinking is that could we use the technology that out there that can help us? Everyone, if you are not heard about ChatGPT by now, you are live under the rock, right? And technology is there. So something that we have been doing is that can we take the different technologies, the sensors at different platforms, different scales, to work on stuff? I'll just use one example, right? I have left my phone here. I was trying to say, right? You all have a phone, right? On the phone, if you have an iPhone, you know that you have how many lighters do you have on your phone? You have at least 2 lighters that is on your phone, right? There's a front lighter that allows you to do facial recognition, and there's a lighter in the back that allows you to do scanning, right? And the power of in your phone has more computing power than the terminal machine that sent the man to the moon, the Apollo machine, right? And so you think about it. This different technology, either at your fingertip or drones all over the place. Satellite Europe just launched the first hyperspectral sensor platform into the sky. Now they have the new bands that is up to 20 meters with hyperspectral, right? There's lots of technology out there, but they all have some limitations from the spatial scale, spatial resolution, and spatial coverages. And so, but what if we have opportunity and work together to move them all together to sort of break the physical barriers to make it a high resolution, high spatial coverage together? So this is a topic that I guess was a lot of discussion later. But I'm going to give you guys a few examples of how this could be potentially applied. I will give you about 3 or so case studies. So the first case study is something that we have been spending a lot of energies on. We have now platforms all the way from backpacks to the manned aircraft of sensor packages that we developed, right? This is not me individually. I'm working with many faculty members from aviation technology, computer science, and different groups. But what does it able to do? I'm showing one picture here. The screen is, well, if you're curious about the source of citations, I'll be happy to share with you. Okay, so what are we seeing here? It's not just a big, some color on this. Well, here's what the movie that caused my computer is not able to copy the files. But this is a light point cloud, okay? What you're seeing here is about 10 hectares of a forest that representing the individual stand per se, and I'll explain some of the details a little bit later. But to acquire this data, you need to fly a drone into the sky. Takes about 40 minutes for us, about 20 hectares of land, experimental forest. And then you take the point cloud data, you plug into a machine with some AI assistance of model and so on, and then you can do individual tree level of recognition, measurement, and so on. So let me walk you through with this. This is a point cloud colored by high. The more red color means taller, and the ground is blue. Once you have the point cloud, you can feed it into an AI. And then in this case, we train the AI into 4 classes, right? Canopy, yellow, stem green, and the understory vegetation is pink. And then you have ground dead woody debris as yellow. Because it's in the digital world, you can take the things away as you wish, right? Take the canopy away, now you see individual stems. You can reconstruct it to individual tree level. Every single tree, wall to wall. if your focus is on the shrub and so on, and invasives, that's also a tool that you can use. All right, so, and most of the invasive plants that we deal with are shrubs, or sometimes they are not. But with these kind of data, the digital twin that's in your hand now, you can do much about it. Here's a point cloud again you've been shown a moment ago. Guess what? Again, you train an AI, it tells you, hey, here's all the understory that is potentially your candidate for honeysuckles or buckthorn and so on and so forth. Here are the individual trees, some of which that might be robinia over here. I don't know, just as an example, right? And so you have the capacity now able to do this, and this is just, again, a different view of this. And you can do this in a very speedy way. You no longer need to, spend hours to sample one single plot. You can do this wall-to-wall for a large area. And I just want to show you how much detail that it allows you to do, right? And Martin was, and I think we mentioned earlier about the tribe database, about the different traits and stuff. Well, guess what? I mean, there are some of the physical traits now they can be available at your fingertip to measure. If you're interested in, I don't know, leaf area coverage, there's a much easier way to calculate now than use a mirror to do so, right? You can do the different, again, the amount of detail at your fingertip that you can do is what, it's like, previously you cannot even think about. So here's just two examples of, a palm tree and a hardwood tree, if we consider palm as trees. And you can, think about the total biomass or volume and so on. Again, these are all doable, reconstructible at your fingertip. And so what we can do at a large scale, right? We just mentioned about 20 hectares, you can do it in an hour, but what about a larger area? Here's another example that we've done this in the city of Chicago. Right? We have about 6 counties, so this is a large area, right? Well, with some of the data set that you can, here's what a picture looks like for a buckthorn infested plot, and here's what is corresponding lighter point cloud look like. And what you're seeing here is there's actually signatures that you can take a look at it. Here's just an example. This is a few, mainly invaded by buckthorn with a little tree over here. Here's sort of somewhat moderate. Now this is a low density by the buckthorn. This is a healthy forest. You see the structure is different, right? And so use these kind of signatures. What you can do is then you can map them out, right? Based on the different lighter signature that you have. Now I can tell, oh, sorry, I click too fast. Oh, okay. We can map out the entire area. If this is your priority, buckthorn, you can do the whole Chicago area. Here's another example about, for those of you worry about the cattle repair or plant infestation, which is a beautiful landscape tree. It stinks when the flowers, but it's people's sort of perfect yacht tree. But it's escaped and invaded all over. But with the again, high resolution sensors on board with an aircraft, you can do this very easily right? Here's a pear tree when it's flowering. So at the right moment, you're able to find this. So what we did is that, okay, well, what if we train an AI for this and let it work, do its work? And so here's a convolution neural network that we trained, and now within an hour, we can do the entire New York City, 5 boroughs all together, right? Imagine, data acquisition is going to take a couple of days for the aircraft to, get the data. But once the data is here, now we are looking into the opportunity to use worldview 1, worldview 2, or 3, the more high resolution or SkySat data that has, half a meter of spatial resolution, feed this into our AI model. Now we can do more of this at a much broader scale, more than just New York City. Maybe we can do the whole entire Eastern US if we have the data that we're going after. And the models, I'm just quickly pointing out some of the pictures, like they are dead on, right? It's just what AI is good at is if your human eyes can see it, they will see it. And even if your eye cannot see it, it will find patterns that they will see it. What about species? Like in the case of pair has a unique, phenology. What about now we do it because think about one of the issues is that population urbanization. We heard about the jack-o'-lantern tree this morning in Africa. It's a beautiful tree, right? But if you are thinking about this in the urban landscape, which is majority of the invasives or the trees that started with, then escaped into the landscape. Can we do better about those, right? So images, again, are much more available these days at your fingertip. Here's another example. Can we use images to do tree mapping, to do species, especially these invasive ones we care about? Okay, well, these images like a planet, it goes around, it orbits the Earth on a daily basis. And if the cloud, get covered, but without cloud, you have a picture of this. So here's just an image of showing like from winter all the way to the fall, back to winter, a time series. And these data are relatively easily available to most of us. If you're in academia, like in the US, we have government has contracts, so we get free data that, if you want to work with them. And so, but then again, in order to use this data, here's just an example. We have stack of data every month, so we pick a picture because trees leaf on, leaf off, and color change, and so on and so forth. And you train an AI to recognize the different patterns and so on and so forth. And then you can do tree mapping. So here's an example. Now we have done all the major cities across the US, 330 plus cities with population of 100,000 plus. We mapped all the trees, right? We counted them. And the AI got trained about 14 days on a supercomputer. But once that AI has been trained, now the whole entire US, if you give me the data, I can do the tree counting in a single day. One day. And some of you may, again, think about, well, what about the species? Well, here's another example about we can map the species, again, based on the, the different color and so on. So it has done a decent job, depending on the regions and so on. Some species are easier to be confused than the others. But overall, you see this sort of diagonal line showing species recognition are doing relatively well. The oaks are often easy to be confused because different oaks, even we're on the ground, we couldn't really tell them apart. And here's, again, the entire Cook County in Chicago. We now have a species map for the urban area, right? So these are just, again, this is not meant to be, I didn't give much detail about how we actually did this and so on, but it's as an example about technology is there and could help us to do many different things that we cannot imagine it before. whether it's an individual tree measurement about its biomass or species identification, to the regional landscape level mapping of invasives or eradication or whatever the effort they are to do, or to the much more broader scale of thinking about policies and so on. So, this is a slide that I put it on sort of last minute. I want to show you is that there was some discussion earlier about data, right? All these amount of data, what we do with it and how we can share. Well, it was, again, these different LiDAR data, drone data, you need a platform to be able to visualize and to do all this. So we have created a portal called D2S, Data to Science, a web portal for data sharing that you no longer need to download the data. Most of the stuff can be processed in the cloud to store your data over there for free. If you don't want the public to access it, just make it to yourself. If you want to share with others, you can make it open to anyone. That's my last slide. And with this, I hope that we can take the advantage of technology, injected it into this very important field of biological invasions. And together, I think we can make it. So that's it. Thank you.